You're sweet, but not my level. Dating down is exhausting, she whispered at the country club, thinking I'd sit there and prove her wrong. I didn't. I just smiled politely, nodded, and let her believe our breakup was mutual, while I quietly packed up a life she didn't know I had just upgraded. My name's Alex, 29M. I had been dating Claire for almost 2 years, and for all intents and purposes, she came from a world I admired but didn't belong to. Old money, sprawling family estates, charity galas, and a social calendar that made my head spin. She worked in corporate marketing for a Fortune 500, had a downtown condo her parents bought her, and drove a car that cost more than my first 3 apartments combined. Me? I was a scrappy entrepreneur who had spent the last 5 years building a tech startup from my tiny one-bedroom apartment, surviving on takeout and hand-me-down furniture. I never flaunted it, never made a point to discuss funding rounds or projections. I drove a 10-year-old Toyota Camry that still ran perfectly, wore the same casual jeans and jackets I'd had for years, and generally kept my life low-key. I valued work, progress, and potential over appearances, but Claire didn't see that. She only saw the lack of flash. She never knew that 6 weeks before that fateful country club charity brunch, I'd sold my company for $15 million. That's $15 million after taxes and paying back investors. Enough to completely change my life, if I wanted it to, and I didn't feel the need to tell anyone yet, not even her. I wanted to figure out my next moves first, plan a life for myself without the distraction of judgment or social pressure. But she had her own timing. That Saturday, she asked me to go to some fundraiser at the club. I'd been to a few of these before, always feeling like an outsider. The smell of polished leather, champagne flutes, and subtle perfume everywhere. The chatter about summer homes, vacation destinations, and luxury cars. And there, in the middle of the room, was her friend Morgan, showing off her brand-new $80,000 Porsche Cayenne, surrounded by admirers taking photos for Instagram. Claire was giddy, snapping pictures like a little kid at a candy store, while I stood near her cousin Jake, my old college roommate and now my business partner. We were talking quietly about integration timelines and partnership opportunities, which, of course, meant nothing to Claire's world. Then I heard her. Her voice carried, just loud enough for me to catch every syllable. "God, I am so jealous," she said to Morgan. "I keep telling myself I need to be realistic about my situation." And then the gesture, a vague motion in my direction. "My friends keep asking why I am dating down," she said. The room went still. Everyone glanced at me, smiled awkwardly, tried to laugh it off. Morgan attempted to change the subject, but Claire pressed on, like she couldn't help herself. "I mean, he's sweet and all," she said, "but look at the other couples. These guys actually provide the lifestyle we grew up with. Alex is still hustling with his little tech company in that modest apartment." I could feel Jake's eyes on me, and he knew exactly what had happened. I just stood there, processing the surreal irony that the woman I had loved, someone I had pictured building a life with, had literally described me as dating down because she assumed I couldn't afford her world. I stepped over, smiled politely, and said, "Hey, Claire, can we talk?" Her face shifted from embarrassment to defensiveness. "Alex, it's not. I mean, we just come from different backgrounds." I shook my head slightly, not even mad, just calm. "Claire, do you think you're dating beneath your level?" Long pause. "Maybe we want different things in life," she said finally. "It's time we acknowledge that." I nodded. She looked relieved, like she had just handled a tough conversation maturely. I didn't tell her I was already thinking about moving to Seattle, where the acquiring company wanted me to potentially run operations in the Pacific Northwest. She didn't need to know she was dismissing someone who was already $15 million richer than she thought. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly packing, telling mutual friends we were taking a break to think about life, keeping her dignity intact while quietly stepping out of her world. I moved 3 weeks later, bought a clean, modest condo in Capitol Hill, still driving the Camry because, honestly, it was paid off and reliable. I began exploring the Seattle tech scene, networking, attending meetups, and sketching ideas for my next venture. Meanwhile, Claire was posting about the country club life, weekend trips to wine country, dinner parties with finance bros and trust fund kids, completely oblivious of the fact that the person she thought was struggling was now quietly one of the most interesting tech acquisitions in the region. Jake visited one weekend, bringing news from our old city. Claire had been asking about me. He mentioned that she was curious how I was adjusting to Seattle. She seemed happy to hear you're working on new projects, Jake said, but she had this look like she expected you to be struggling. I just smiled, nodded, and focused on my coffee. Life had shifted so dramatically, but the satisfaction wasn't in proving her wrong. It was in living my life on my terms. Then the Forbes journalist reached out, asking to profile me as part of a feature on 30 under 30 fintech innovators. I hesitated at first. I've never sought publicity, but my mentor reminded me visibility would attract talent and partners for the next project. I agreed. The piece came out, focused on the problems my startup solved, the technical innovation, and the market impact. The money got mentioned, sure, but the heart of it was the work itself. Jake texted me 30 minutes after publication. Bro, Claire saw Forbes. Her story is 12 crying laughing, emojis repeated. She's all over your old Instagram posts now, totally rewriting history, claiming she always knew you'd be great. I didn't respond. I wanted no part of the revisionist narrative. Emma, the woman I was dating here, laughed when I showed her the messages. Wow, she said. She really thinks you don't remember her saying you weren't good enough for her friends. What would you do? Nothing, I said. That's the truth. People who measure you by net worth aren't worth the energy, no matter how much you have in the bank. Emma had known me for just 2 months before Forbes, and her interest didn't spike after the article came out. She cared about the problems I was solving, the impact I was making, not the headlines or numbers. Meanwhile, Claire's reaction escalated from DMs to emails, long messages about how proud she was, and how she had always believed in my potential. She suggested we celebrate when she came to Seattle on a work trip. I didn't respond. Claire's, timeline was completely wrong in her mind. She thought I sold my company after our breakup. Prove her wrong. She had no idea the deal closed 6 weeks before she called me dating down. I let her maintain her false narrative. Some bridges don't need to be rebuilt just because circumstances change. Her reality and my reality were never going to align. 6 months later, Claire did show up in Seattle, handwritten letter in hand, reinterpreting our relationship as two ambitious people growing into our potential. No acknowledgement of the country club comment, no mention of the dating down remark, just polished, neat PR. Emma read it, shook her head. She's trying to convince you her opinion changed because you grew, not because she saw the money. Exactly. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, Jake gave me an update. Claire was telling people at the country club that we were working through long-distance challenges, showing off the Forbes article as a personal victory. Her new finance boyfriend, Marcus, increasingly silent at social events when my name came up. Their relationship eventually ended 3 weeks later. The irony, she dumped me for lack of financial flash, tried to upgrade, and still ended up losing both substance and status she was chasing. Meanwhile, Emma and I flourished. 3 months ago, we made it official. She asked about partnerships, potential co-founders, impact. She's excited about my next company, focus on financial accessibility for small businesses. Claire rejected me for not being rich enough while I was literally building tools to empower entrepreneurs. And that, more than any Forbes article, is my quiet satisfaction. The final note, I'm happy, building what matters, living in a city I love, with someone who values authenticity over bank statements. Claire learned nothing I said or did could define her satisfaction. Emma proved that shared values, not appearances, make life meaningful. Some contrast is necessary to appreciate the real thing. I keep the Forbes piece framed in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that self-worth is not what others perceive, and people who need external validation aren't worth impressing. Life has a rhythm now: work, partnership, growth, purpose. Claire occasionally crosses my mind, but it's fleeting, more curiosity than attachment. The story, if anything, taught me clarity about priorities, self-respect, and what truly matters in relationships. And Emma? She's showing me exactly that every single day with laughter, patience, and shared excitement over building something meaningful rather than chasing trophies. It's funny how life works. People underestimate you. Others misjudge your worth. And yet when you follow your values, everything aligns in ways that arrogance and status never could.